Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
In the Hassidic community, there's a huge divide between the genders. I'm being told that it's not right for Jewish girls to become EMTs. So when I first went to Hatzalah, oh no, they told me, Mrs. Fryer, when it comes to speed and strength, men are superior.
Hatzalah is the boys' club. It took like 30 years for somebody like Ruchi to come around and say, hey, you don't want us, we'll do our own thing.
We're talking about women who no one's ever seen their naked legs except for their husband. And then suddenly there's 10 men in her room while she's exposed from the waist down.
Someone is invading your privacy and you're a woman. You want that person to be a woman.
In Judaism, a woman's place is the home, and I say that with respect.
The hate that again has came the mama, unbelievable.
We can have the best system and the best training, but if we're not getting calls, it's not going to work.
Hatzalah is painting the picture that we are defying the rabbis. We're going to get an official Figme radio, and our code is going to be 93Q, 93 Queen. Of course, we had a major fiasco. They put a boot on the car. Don't ask me how it happened. We can have babies every year, but just being an EMT something we can't do? Of course we can do it.
I'm Mark Golub, and the movie clip you just saw comes from an eye-opening documentary film which tells the story of how a group of Hassidic Orthodox women living in Borough Park, Brooklyn, challenged the community's rabbinic authorities to successfully create the first female EMT, Emergency Medical Response Team, called Esras Nashim, which means Women's Help, to serve the needs of Orthodox women in their community, especially relating to issues of childbirth and OBGYN, but certainly not limited to those needs. And you should know that Esras Nashim is now a fixture on the greater New York City EMT scene, and in 2018 received the EMS Agency of the Year Award from the city. The film is entitled 93 Queen, which refers to the code handle the women used for dispatching medical aid. It's a dramatic story centered on the founder of Esras Nashim, Rachel Ruchi Fryer, an Orthodox mother of 6 children who first became a paralegal, then a lawyer, ultimately ran in a city election to become Brooklyn's first female circuit judge. You'll have to watch the film to see if she won or not. 93 Queen is a superbly told documentary, superbly shot, edited, with amazing behind-the-scenes footage that has many dimensions to it and raises fascinating and important questions about women in contemporary Hasidic Orthodox Jewish life today. 93 Queen is not a simple film. And from the perspective of the Jewish community, particularly the more observant frum Jewish community represented by Borough Park, it's a film that merits serious discussion, which is why I'm so very pleased to welcome to L'Chaim a most talented young director who crafted 93 Queen, Paula Eiselt. Paula Eiselt is an independent filmmaker, a graduate of NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, and while 93 Queen is her first feature documentary, Paula has directed a number of shorter films, and she's currently developing a New York Times op-doc on Jewish identity. Paula, thank you so much for joining us. Mazal Tov, you did a fabulous film, and it's an honor to be sitting with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, you know, I just mentioned you went to Tisch, you become a filmmaker, you double majored, but it doesn't tell me how you actually got involved in filmmaking, either your short films or long film. And I want to know who you are first before we talk about 93 Queen. So I began at the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born on Long Island.
And what were your parents' names?
They are Sheila and Mel Finkelstein.
Sheila and Mel Finkelstein.
Yes.
And what kind of Jewish home did they have for you?
I grew up with my two brothers, younger brothers, in a modern Orthodox home. Went to Hafter High School, which is a Hebrew academy of 5 towns in Rockaway, in the 5 towns. So that's where I grew up. My parents are big film people. They love cinema and music. So I grew up with an appreciation for that.
And when you say film, what are you describing?
What
kind of film did they love?
The Godfather.
Feature films.
Feature films. Stanley Kubrick. You know, I grew up with that.
Did they take you?
They did take me. I think the first film I saw was The Little Mermaid, though.
Okay.
When I was really young.
And music they liked?
Music. My mom is a big Grateful Dead head.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Paula, I would not have guessed it.
Yep. So my brothers followed suit. They like Fish and a lot of jam bands. My rebellion was to not like that. So I was like the anti-Deadhead. But that's the flavor that I grew up with. Although, you know, very much in the structure of modern Orthodoxy, and you know, we did everything we were supposed to do. So, but I really got I fell into filmmaking in high school, where I wanted to become a filmmaker in 10th grade.
Why?
So it's kind of a funny story. One day, a friend and I decided we were going to cut class. So that's what we did, and she lived right off of Central Avenue, which is like the main street in the 5 towns, and Hafter High School is right there, and there used to be a Blockbuster. Love Blockbuster, so we're like, okay, let's like watch a movie, and we went to Blockbuster, and we just grabbed like a random film. Turns out it was Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. I don't know if you've seen it. It's quite the film. It's not, you know, something that you just casually just pop in and watch.
It's not The Godfather.
It's not The Godfather, but it is an intense, it's as intense, a really viscerally intense film, very disturbing, but just so cinematic in every way. And after the credits finished rolling, my friends and I just were staring at the screen with our mouths wide open, and I said to myself, like, I want to do this.
How old are you?
I was, I guess, 15.
15.
But what do I do? Because I'm living in the 5 towns, a modern Orthodox school. There's no film. There's no like real arts. There is like there was the drama club. That's what we had, but there wasn't anything cinema wise. So the first thing I did was start a film club, and so I did that. But then I realized if I wanted to get into film school, I need experience, and I didn't have any. So my mom said, you know what, I had a friend from high school, Bernard Telsey, and he's now a huge casting director for Broadway and film. Let me see if I can get you an internship. So she did, and I ended up interning there. And then I decided I really wanted, so that was for one summer, I decided I wanted to intern for Darren Aronofsky. That was like my dream, because this is why I want to make film. So it was again through my mom. She found his agent somewhere, and we sent him a paper that I wrote about the film. Like, okay, fine, just come. So I interned for Darren Aronofsky for a couple of summers.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there I was. And that was like my first foray into the film industry. And actually, like, I grew up, you know, in a very Jewish environment. I really didn't even have non-Jewish friends, honestly, zero. So here I was, you know, being thrust into the world, and I loved it. I loved, you know, just meeting other people, and it was like, this is amazing. So that was how I got into it. And then I applied to NYU, and I wrote, you know, I wrote a short story and like a script, and I was accepted, and it was pretty amazing, you know.
That's a wonderful story. And then you go to Tisch. Was that a good experience?
That was an incredible experience.
Because?
It was difficult, but it was incredible. That's where I learned really about film. I was a double major in cinema studies and film and TV production. So I was getting film theory and filmmaking, and it was just a lot. But that's where I met my mentors, and mentors are really important. One of my professors, his name is Marco Williams. He's the EP, executive producer of 93 Queen. He's been with me since then for over 10 years. Just all my projects, advice, looking at things, letters of recommendation, reading over grant writing, reading over budgets, just always there to champion me.
How lucky you are. Are you more interested in doing documentaries, or you're interested in doing feature as well?
So it's funny. In NYU, I really was on the feature fiction path. That's what I did. My shorts were 2 short fictions, and that's what I was going to do. And then after I graduated, I worked for Marco, and I just fell into documentary. You know, the truth is stranger than fiction, as they say, and there's just so many stories, and I like just talking to people. So I just gravitated towards documentary.
Very good.
Doesn't mean I'm always going to do it.
Yes.
But for right now.
So, how, Paula, do you fall into the story of Rachel Fryer?
Yeah.
And that leads to 93 Queen.
So it was really, I literally fell into it. I was perusing an online Orthodox website called Vos's Nias for fun. It's a marvelous place to look for stories. And wasn't, you know, looking for a story at that point. And I just saw this blurb, and it said a group of Hasidic women are starting a female ambulance corps because the existing corps Hatzalah does not allow women. And I just, full stop, I just, you know, stopped in my tracks. I said, wait a second, you know, I grew up with Hatzalah, and it never occurred to me that women were excluded. How did I never realize that? What's wrong with me?
You should explain what Hatzalah is.
Okay, Hatzalah is an all-male EMS corps that exists within Orthodox communities around the world. They're the largest volunteer ambulance corps in the world.
And they do remarkable work.
Remarkable work. They're, you know, they're incredible. They save hundreds of thousands of lives.
They're very important in Israel as well.
They are. The Israel one is completely separate, by the way, than the one that operates in America. But it just had never occurred to me that, you know, women were not allowed to serve in any capacity.
I want you to think about that one more moment. You're a bright, educated woman. You're in the modern Orthodox world. It never occurred to you that something staring you in the face was true, that Hatzalah was all men. Could it have been in your mind that although it was all men, it was not because women couldn't, it just was coincidental that only men wanted to?
Maybe. I think I just didn't think about it. Like a cognitive dissonance. I just didn't, you know, thank God I never had to call them. So it was just, you know, I knew there were Hatzalah guys, and they'd walk around with their walkie-talkies, and that's who they were. And yeah, it just didn't occur to me until, this was 6 years ago, so I was in my 20s. You know.
Okay. As I'm watching the documentary, I'm saying to myself, I wonder when Paula got into the story, because in terms of the cinematography, it's as if you're there from day one, moment one. And I'm wondering whether any of that was recreated because you weren't there at day one. What day do you enter the process?
Right, so I'll just clarify everything, nothing was recreated.
It's all honest.
All that is verite. We had over 200 hours of footage.
And how many camera people?
It was just me for most of it.
What do you mean just you?
I filmed the majority of it literally by myself.
You're the camera person?
For the bulk of it. For a lot of the atmospheric B-roll shots, I brought in...
No, I'm talking about we're following Rachel.
That's just me. That's the only way you can get access.
Okay. And how hard was it? Rachel is it's Rachel Fryer, Rachi, is the main character that drives the story. She's the one who is driven to create this women's EMS, women's equivalent of Hatzalah. And she's an interesting character. And she had to give you permission.
Yeah.
How did that happen? What did you say to her? What did she say back to you? And then what was the dynamic between the two of you over what period of time? It looked like...
5 years.
5 years. You're following this woman for 5 years. How many hours of footage?
We had over 200. My editor says now it's 300, but
isn't it daunting?
It was daunting. It was massive.
Okay.
So back to like when I found the story. So I realized that Hatzalah didn't allow women. That was like the first lightning bolt. The second was here were a group of women, Hassidic women no less, who were not taking no for an answer. And I had never seen an act of defiance from within the Hasidic community from women. And I was like, there is something happening here. There's a rumbling of change. I need to go meet this woman. So at the bottom of this article, there was a number for Ruchi Fryer, just on the internet. It's like, great. So I called Ruchi, and I explained to her that I'm religious, and I'm a filmmaker, and I want to come meet her. So I went to her house to meet her. I told her what I wanted to do, that I think, what she's doing is incredible. And to get to your question of what stage this was at, they had their certification to form. So they got the approval that they can form a group, and they were recruiting. So when I first started, I didn't know if they were going to take off or not. They were trying to get women. They were trying to get equipment. They had no equipment. They had nothing. So that's where I came in, when they had the approval to go, but they were forming. Anyway, so how do I get Ruchi to agree to this? So there were two reasons why she did it. One was the fact that I have an Orthodox background and I'm a woman was very unique. I'm able to relate to the women. My uncle lives in Borough Park. He's Hassidic. So I understand the Hassidic world. And I understand the different rules of modesty. And I was able to agree to uphold those rules of modesty in my filming. And
I don't understand. What rule would be an issue?
Custom. So, for example, because I'm so sensitive to their customs, if a woman's elbow was shown by accident, I would know to crop that out or to adjust. I had the sensitivity to notice those things that made it okay for them to be on camera. So knowing that I'm aware of that put Ruchi at ease. Here I am. I'm coming from a non-judgmental place. I understand her. I'm a mother. There's ways that we can relate to each other. The second was, she had doubts about media and how the community is portrayed in media. And I said to Ruchi, if you're upset with the way media portrays the Hasidic community, you have to show them something else. We need to give a different face to your community, and you can do that. I explained that there seems to be a cycle here. The community is very insular, so media is not welcome in. So a lot of media tells stories of this community from the outside, and they end up being largely negative or stereotypical. And the community sees those stories and says, look, they hate us, we're not letting them in. So we needed to break the cycle, and I was willing to show another perspective from this community and give Hasidic women a platform and a voice from within.
Mm-hmm. I hope you understand, as a film, and also as a documentary about a feature of contemporary Hasidic Orthodox life, you have done something magnificent and important. As a rabbi, I have questions. And to the extent to which you can just sort of share your perspective, it would be helpful to me. And to the extent to which you can't, there's no problem. You refer to yourself as from. Okay. Normally, the word from does not apply to modern Orthodox women. It applies to women who are more in Rachi's world. She's not modern Orthodox. By the way, the problem, and I want to talk to you about this in a minute, is not the problem. The dynamic is, don't go there yet, but I'm telling you, one of the things that I keep thinking to myself as I'm watching both Rachi and her cadre of supporters is they belong in the modern Orthodox world, but we'll get there. But, for example, a from woman will not shake the hand of a man. And at one point in the film, she goes to a conference, and she says to the man, I hope it's okay, I'm a from woman, I'm not going to shake your hand.
Oh, yes, yes.
I walk into the room with you, and you shake my hand. Obviously, what it meant to her is not what it means to you.
I think the way from the way I define from is Torah observant. I'm observant of.
Well, is she more Torah observant than you are?
I think she has more stringencies than I do, but we can get into that.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
But if someone goes to shake my hand, I won't recoil. Will I initiate a hug? Not necessarily, but that's my own boundary.
I understand. And by the way, this is in no way a criticism. I'm trying to understand where you are in the Orthodox world and how you viewed the Hasidic community that you lived with for 5 years and are documenting. And one of the things I'm interested in is, as a filmmaker, you have enormous latitude to decide what goes into the film. But you can't make it up. Ultimately, you're trying to bring to the viewer the reality as you understand it. And again, a filmmaker shapes a story. You tell a fabulous story. So I'm sure there are times that you sat with your editor or you sat alone in a room and you're watching and you have to decide, is it going to go this way, is it going to go that way?
Right.
Okay. But one of the things that is clear to me is that there is a tension that Rachi is constantly dealing with, which her colleagues, her sisters in arms here are dealing with, in which she knows that while she believes passionately that she is Jewishly doing the right thing, she's in a community where she is breaking all the norms. And I wanted you to talk about that. And the extent to which that does reflect your own perspective, or you're an Orthodox Jewish woman, you're a mother of 2, correct? 3. And you live in New Jersey.
Recent Teaneck.
Okay, Teaneck. Okay, you're in an Orthodox community.
Yeah.
I assume you still identify as modern Orthodox.
Yeah.
Okay, and your husband does too. Okay, but there is a big difference between modern Orthodox and the world you were filming.
Oh my God, light years.
Yes, light years. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether you didn't feel that you were watching something dramatically unfold, like a flower opening up. At the same time, Paula, it was a flower that was going to create all kinds of tensions and problems and challenges for an established mores of Jewish life.
Of course.
And I wanted you to talk about that.
Okay. Of everything you're saying is exactly true. The heart of this film is change from within. And it's how do communities, especially conservative communities, change from the bottom up. And I believe it usually comes from people from within the community that see a need, and they're the ones that can respond to that need. It's also about female-led change, that when women are empowered, they lift up entire communities. So when I reached out to Ruchi, I saw that flower, that this was a rumbling of change that was happening. And Ruchi knows that she's changing culture. She'll say, you know, by forming Ezras Nashim, that is literally changing the culture of Borough Park. Here, there were men who claimed EMS space. For whatever reason, there's still no clear answer why Hatzalah would not allow women. They, you know, women aren't strong enough, which obviously is debunked. There are women doctors everywhere, and women EMTs and FDNY. I mean, that's not really, you know, something that you can that holds up. Really, it comes down to power and ego. You know, men just don't want. It's very threatening for men to see women come into this space. And Ruchi was said, "This is the right thing. I'm doing it. I don't really care. You know, if Hatzalah doesn't agree with this, I'm here to serve women and to serve my community, and there's a need for this, and I'm going to do it. And even if I'm disliked, I don't care." And that's what I admire about Ruchi. She's not afraid to be disliked. I think if she were a man, a lot of people would react differently to her.
Absolutely.
But because she's a woman and she's stepping out of traditional roles by being so empowered, that makes people uncomfortable. So all of that tension is why I think it's an incredible story.
Okay. Forgive me for pushing you just a little bit. I want to understand
Please.
again. In your modern Orthodox community, the women who receive Aliyah, they called to the Torah.
So the synagogue that I go to is called Nativot Shalom, and women do not go up to the Torah.
Why not?
Because that's the norm of this synagogue. But there is women. We have there's a partnership minyan.
Doesn't count.
I know. So what you're getting at is the cognitive dissonance that maybe I have as an Orthodox woman.
Sort of. And it's not.
And I'm very aware of it.
Yes. And by the way, it's not an attack on you.
Oh, no.
It's a philosophical issue for me. Okay? Because I understand you. And look, I'm going to read to you a passage from the Bavli Talmud, from Megillah 23a. It says, all are qualified to be among the 7 people called to read the Torah, including minors and women. Only the sages said that a woman should not read the Torah out of respect to the congregation, kibbutz tzibur. It's not that women are forbidden to read unless in some way the community feels it is not appropriate, that it offends their sensibility. That is a very powerful Jewish ethic. That there's minhag hamakom, that every community sort of shapes its norm. And you live in a community where, even though my guess is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, if it turned out that one day the Rabbanim in your community said, you know what, it doesn't offend kibbutz tzibur, and from now on we're going to call Paula to the Torah at a service where when she says the blessing of the Torah, it counts for everybody who's listening. Right. If you were told by the authorities that that was okay, my guess is you would be very comfortable with it. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I would love it.
You would love it. Okay.
Great.
At the same time, because at the moment, the community standard that you are comfortable in doesn't make that commitment, you're still comfortable.
Yet, I think we're really at a crossroads in modern Orthodoxy. And it all, correctly, as you're saying, has to do with women. Right now, there are women rabbis, Orthodox rabbis who are being ordained.
By the way, I think it's
there's
careful not. We shouldn't mislead our audience. Okay, a Maharat is not a rabbi.
But there's Rabbi Dina Brower.
But you understand that no woman is allowed to be a shliach tzibur.
I understand.
But
what I'm saying is, I'm just telling you, I think about this all the time.
I'm sure.
So what I think is that I'm agreeing with you. I think there's going to be a schism, which has happened historically already with with Orthodox, conservative, and Reform, and it always has to do with women and all of those schisms. And it's going to be that, you know, the community is going to split to really Haredi, really right wing, and then people who accept women. I believe the modern Orthodox pool is just going to probably disappear, maybe, because
the modern Orthodox pool will disappear.
I think women, maybe my children.
Yes.
There's too much dissonance between what a woman can do outside of her community,
yes,
to then come back to her community and see that she's legally, halachically second class. And I think whereas decades ago, there wasn't, the distance wasn't as, the gap wasn't as large, because women's, you know, women's rights all over the world were dismal. They're not great now either. We still have a lot of work to do in the secular world. We are not at parity. That is, there's tons of work to do, as we know. With Me Too, Time's Up, there's a lot of work to do. I don't think the secular world has it figured out. However, you know, it's not like in the 70s or 80s or even 90s. You know, women are much more a part of the workforce.
Absolutely.
That gap between what a secular woman can do and a religious, modern Orthodox woman can do is getting further. So I do think
and it will bother your children.
I do think it will.
Your daughters.
I do. My daughter. And maybe hopefully my sons. You know, I do think it will. It bothers me, and I think.
Does it bother your husband?
Yeah. I think the rabbis are going to have to make a decision if they're going to listen to women and realize that they're going to lose a lot of women if they don't allow women to be fully a part of the service. Ruchi Fryer would completely disagrees with everything I'm saying.
Yes, and I don't understand why, because you say it so beautifully. And I believe you say it accurately. And yet I know she disagrees, which is where this is going. I wanted, you anticipated exactly. I wanted you to define where you are, and I understand it 100%. And it may be, and it may be that at one point in time, you and your husband will be more comfortable in a setting, in an Orthodox synagogue setting, however it's created, where you feel it is honest and committed to halakha and to Jewish tradition, but it gives you and your daughter a greater participation in the ways that you feel are important. You use the phrase second-class citizen, which is an interesting
thing to say.
It's an interesting thing for me to hear from a woman your age, that you experience Judaism for you and your daughter as if you're a second-class citizen.
So let me clarify it. I don't. That's why I said legally, because my lived experience every day is not second class.
You're not allowed to. They don't call you to the Torah. You may say to me it doesn't matter to you.
That's the question. If it doesn't matter, then is it true? If it doesn't matter.
Yes. And when I say it matters, the audience should understand. I'm not here promoting or bashing any expression of Judaism. This is for me. This is, I love this, right?
I love it too.
And I love the philosophical challenge. How communities work their challenge out, I am supportive of anything they want to do. And I know, and you do too, there are women in the Orthodox world who are very happy being what you're not happy being. And they would never, it wouldn't occur to them to consider themselves second-class citizens.
Right. I mean,
and if they're happy and they're Jewish and they're living a life and they're raising their children and they're whatever they are in the home and in the family and the community, I'm not critical of them. And I'm very annoyed by non-Orthodox Jews who criticize Orthodoxy, not because they care about you, but because it's not what they are.
Exactly.
Okay, and so the audience should understand, I am not in any way critical, but I am fascinated by a film you make where there's this woman who is in this from world and basically says, I'm from, toward the end of the film, she does a little soliloquy about what is it to be a feminist, and is she a feminist? And she argues she's not. I think she's wrong. As I'm watching
A Jewish feminist.
You and I, you know what I mean.
She's the biggest feminist.
She is definitely.
And I tell her all the time, like, she's the
Of
hugest
course.
feminist I've ever met.
Of course.
She knows that she says she distinguishes secular feminism to religious feminism. There's a dissonance.
Right. And she needs to do that for herself. And
Right.
and you
That's
know
fine.
what? Exactly. You and I agree.
That's fine.
If this makes it possible for her, fine.
Right.
But you and I understand, objectively speaking, this woman has moved. And she's moved away from the mores of a community that has a very definite idea of kibbutz tzibur for her community. And her answer was, I don't care. Okay. And I say to myself, and I'm asking both you to talk for her, but I'm also asking you to talk for you. Why doesn't somebody who has your sensibilities say to herself, I don't know where I can be. I'm not a conservative Jew. I'm certainly not a Reformed Jew. But I'm not a Jew who is going to bring my children up with the notion that they cannot be anything my son can be. And at the moment, you're in that world. Rachi's in the world. Why do you make a face to me?
Because
your daughter cannot receive an aliyah. Your daughter cannot be a shliach tzibur. You may say it doesn't matter to you, but it's true. And it doesn't matter enough for you to say, I don't want to be here. I want to find a different model. Although you then said to me, my children
I like Ruchi Fryer, both of us, we have the grit to stay, to make the change from within. I could say, see you guys later, or I could be in my shul and fight for change, because there are other things about the community and Orthodoxy that I think are integral to my Judaism. If I jump ship, then where am I?
Take them with you. And but I have a little problem with that. You have a whole community that is, and I don't want to put a value judgment on it, they're comfortable. You know, you show in your film all the ways in which Rachi's community is very upset with her. They're putting things online. She's nominated to be Mother of the Year, and they say it's an embarrassment. Yes.
But we know what happens at the end of the film.
By the way, it's not Borough Park that makes her. It's not Borough Park. And it's fascinating. You have this shot. It's so brilliant on Election Day. And it's vote Aki.
No, but to win that seat, it's the bulk of Borough Park. You need Borough Park to win that seat. You need it. Anyone who wins it, you have to have Borough Park. You have to.
Do you feel that Borough Park has changed its Jewish norms? She tries to get a rabbi to give her some kind of hechsher, some kind of approval.
I think by the fact that she is the first Hasidic woman elected to public office in the U.S. is tremendous.
Yes, it is.
And change is slow. She has women and girls calling her, I want to go to law school, I want to be this, I want to be that. They're opening a chapter in Stern College for women. They're opening a chapter. It is making waves and change. She's inspiring women to think out of the box. I don't think any of this can happen overnight. She's the first step. All the movements in Judaism took a long time to come.
Right.
These are first steps. I think in my community, there's also, no, I can't get an aliyah, but we just had a bat mitzvah in the shul, and the men had to leave, and the women had the shul to read from the Torah. I understand that. I know that you're saying that it makes nothing. That's silly.
It's silly.
I get it. I hear what you're saying. I don't have a solid answer for you.
Fair enough.
This is how I was brought up. This is what I'm comfortable
I want you to imagine for me, and I don't care how many years it takes. What would you love to see, and what do you think is possible to see in terms of the evolution of the Hasidic Orthodox community because of Rachi?
So I want to point out that the Hasidic community is not monolithic. It's diverse. So when we talk about the Hasidic community, we have to be careful not to conflate Satmar and New Square with the Ruchi Friars. There's diversity in this community.
Absolutely.
So I think, you know, what's happening in Monroe, Kiryat Yoel, very close community. Parts of Williamsburg, very close community. I think it's going to implode. I think it's fanatical. When I see more mainstream Hasidim, the Ruchi Friars, I think she has the ability to make real change.
I want to know what the real change is.
I know what you're getting at. The real change is to have women be more involved in the community, can be the face of the community. Yes, do I want parity and inequality for men and women in the Hasidic community? Of course I do. Do I think that's happening right now? They're going to be equal.
You said it takes time.
It takes time.
But are you saying to me that, I don't know, it's a generation, it's your children, the face of that community?
I would like to see egalitarian congregations that have Orthodox traditions.
I do too, by the way, and they exist. They don't exist maybe to the degree that they will.
They will. I think they'll exist to a far greater
But that's
degree.
not the community
That's
she's
not.
in.
What I want to see. I want to see people be happy. I want to see women. I want to see people happy. I can't tell you. I want to see the community not exist. I can't tell you that because I think that there are a lot of people who love the Hasidic movement. Why is it that women have to be separate and men and women have to be so separate? I don't agree with that. But I don't have a wish. I wish for there to be progress enough that women can be presidents of shul in the Hasidic community, can be leaders in their synagogues. Right now, they can hold no position. Just that would be great. Be great. I would love to see men listen to a woman give a shiur, give a lecture. Little things like that would never happen in Borough Park. I would love to see women being appreciated for their intellect, not just secular, because they're okay with women doing secular things. Their intellect in terms of Judaism. Ruchi is a very knowledgeable person. She knows halacha back and forth. She's very holding, as they would say, in the frum world. She knows her stuff, and she should be respected for her Torah knowledge. I would love to see that. Ruchi's role model is Sarah Schneer, who started the Beis Yaakov movement, which was the movement in the 1920s for Jewish girls to go to school. Because like today, there's actually parallels. Jewish women were leaving Judaism because they were not being educated. So there was a real need. So Sarah Schneer said we have to educate the women. And she had tremendous opposition. Stones were thrown at her. Rabbis would support her. And she was radical. She traveled to Europe with single women at that time in the 20s. That was radical. And that is Ruchi's role model. I think in the same way women were leaving back then for education, women might leave now in Orthodoxy because there's no leadership. I think there are parallels. I don't have answers, I have questions.
Very Jewish. I want to take another theme, and I want to hear how you feel about it. There is, throughout your film, a very anti-male bias. The women are very bitter. Can't join them, beat them. We need something for the ladies. Men have everything. At one point, it's interesting, you have a man, the men are often in shadow. There was no man in your movie who moved me. The man I keep remembering most is the guy who said, they tell me how to vote, I vote.
Well, Ruchi's husband.
He was wonderful.
Yes.
And I think to myself, both of them are like fish out of water. That's what I kept thinking to myself. The Ruchi isn't typical. And you need atypical people to move the needle.
Yes.
Okay. But I'm asking you, was this a conscious decision on your part? Or was it just you were showing me honest resentment and bitterness that women in this community have for men?
you're, of course, entitled to the way you interpret it. I mean, they're up against men in their community.
Yes.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the film illustrates the extent to which there's an undercurrent in the community that certainly you show us. Women resent men. You exposed an emotion in this community that many non-Hasidic Jews, who again, in my mind, are often unfairly critical.
Yeah.
In fact, there is something about this which is troubling, and you feel empathy for these women.
Yeah.
And what you did, I thought bravely and courageously, was you showed it. But you show it, and everybody has to be honest enough to say, you know, do they really hate men? I don't think they hate men. I'm sure they love their husbands and whatever. But there's an undercurrent. You have this woman who says, you know, if you're in your 20s, you have a child, and you're divorced. I can't remember how it ended, but she was expressing how critical the community is of her.
Right, if you're 29 and unmarried without kids, you're practically in your grave.
That's very good. Yes, you remember your life.
You should,
yes,
yeah.
And then she gets married.
Yeah.
Does she not?
Yes.
Fabulous scene, by the way. At one point, and I said, how did Paula get this?
It was
you go, no.
Min Hashemayim.
Just a minute. From heaven. You go with Rachi and her group. She thinks at one moment she's got a very respected rabbi who's going to give her permission to do this, going to sanction it. And the camera goes with her to this meeting. And you see her waiting her turn. And then you see her turn. And her turn comes and all the women go into a room. Maybe I missed it. I don't think you see the rabbi.
No.
Okay. And I assumed that since I didn't see the rabbi didn't want to be on camera.
Correct.
And you respected that and didn't.
Correct.
And so we don't see what happens. We only see the aftermath. Rachi is terribly disappointed because the rabbi, in the end, won't give her.
Right.
Paula, do you understand how fabulous your film is? Where do you see this? It's important for us, especially in the Jewish world, to confront what is honest and true. You've made a true film which at the same time shows what the weakness is in a feature, in an aspect of a very narrow but very important Orthodox world. And you said, and I want you to speak, you're worried, and you're not the first person to say this to me, you're worried that modern Orthodoxy is the one that may not make it. And that if we're only left with forms of Haredi orthodoxy, extreme orthodoxy, a commitment to halakha that does not give people, including women, a chance to be who they are, it threatens Jewish life as a whole.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you said a lot. I will say I sought out to make a accurate film that did not shy away from the warts of the community. I did not want to glorify the community, nor do I want to demonize the community. It is a community that has flaws, like many other communities. Yes, this is a very specific community, but within this specific story is a universal story of women's empowerment. Women all over the world and many communities are fighting the patriarchy. So I think the disdain that or your interpretation of the films or the women's resentment to men, I don't think that's a Hasidic thing. I say those things all the time. You know, secular women say those things all the time. My entire film team is secular. There's no Jew on my team, actually. Women all over say these things. This is not something that you would just hear in the Hasidic community. Men do have everything outside of the Hasidic community. It is easier to be born a man, if you identify as a man, outside the Orthodox community, outside the Jewish community, being a man in this world is easier. So I don't think those things are unique to Hasidic women. I think all women have these feelings. So that's the first part of it. The second part with, you know, and I will say though that these women on their day-to-day, for the most part, don't feel resentful. I think they love their husbands and they love the life that they live. When you look at it from an outsider perspective or as a filmmaker, you're able to see a full picture and you're like, how do you not see this? But they don't. They're happy. In terms of like modern Orthodoxy disappearing and being left with, I guess, a very polarized Jewish community, right? Like either secular, completely secular, or very, very to the right. Yeah, that's a scary thought. And I think that's in most religions, I would say, right now, that seems to be the tide. I feel that, you know, in every religion, kind of the extremists are being emboldened right now. And we live in a scary time. So I think that fear, to me, and a lot of this conversation, and I'm going to take it, you know, further, is really an indictment on religion. I think religion itself can be very detrimental to women. So that's a larger conversation. You know, why are we religious? If we're secular, we wouldn't have to worry about anything.
There'd be problems anyway. Again, I appreciate your perspective so much. I want to tell you one thing about me in the film. Mm-hmm. My favorite person,
yeah,
and I don't remember her name, it's the professional EMT person with the cat. Yocheved. I love Yocheved.
Yeah.
I adore Yocheved. And there's the scene in which Rachi instituted certain rules, including the fact that no single woman will be allowed in Ezras Nashim, which I don't understand. And many of the women said to her, why? And Yocheved also says why. And ultimately, Yocheved, in tears, has to leave the movement because she feels, number one, it's not fair to say that single women can't be involved. And she also feels, as others do, and you show this bravely in the film, that there's a moment when a number of the women feel that Rachi has become tyrannical and is imposing her law. It's my rule, it's my way or the highway.
Right. And
that she isn't embracing enough, and a woman comes, I think it's Pearl, comes and says to her, you know, a lot of women are leaving. And she says, I don't want to be a dictator, but the reality is she was a dictator. And I just want to know, you know, you're watching this firsthand. How did you react to that whole dynamic where all of a sudden, for very personal reasons, maybe valid, Rachi becomes sort of a tyrannical figure?
So the internal conflict of the film, which is, you know, what you're referring to, is really part of the heart of this film, because this is what change looks like. Change is messy, it's not linear, and the people involved often butt heads. It's not tied up in this like nice little bow, and I think that's really important to show the reality of this. It's going to take time. Rachi's, not including single women, was really controversial, and she did it because if she was perceived as too radical, then nobody would accept her. So she walked this very fine line of trying to maintain community norms while she's also at the same time bucking the norms, simultaneously. So she did this dance of diplomacy, which is how I believe she got things done, but people got hurt along the way.
And how did you experience that moment?
I mean, when I saw it was happening, that was, the hardest thing to get access to, because it was the most human thing. This was not a glorifying part of the story. But I explained to Rachi and to the women, it's so important to show this, to show what really happened, so
yes.
people see this, you know, it's not all wine and roses. Like, these are real humans. These are problems. There's the norms of the community are taken very seriously. This is a real story. So that was really important to me. And Yocheved.
Did you like her too?
I love Yocheved.
I
and
love
it was
Yocheved.
a very painful. You know, it's a very sad part of the story, and and in real life, it's very sad. I feel for her a lot, but I'm happy to give an update that, as I alluded to before, single women are now allowed to join, and that's been completely reversed, which is a testament to change is slow and it evolves. We couldn't start out that way because they needed community acceptance. Now that they're going, all women can join, not just Hasidic women and not just Jewish women. They're looking to include all women, and I think that's beautiful.
I want you to be very proud of what you've done, and I'm proud to know you. And what are you going to do next?
That's the
Do you
the
know
big
yet?
question. So I'm doing this short as kind of just like I need to do something contained
Yes.
for a little bit, and then I have a larger project in development also about women, but not Jewish
Okay.
within the Jewish community.
May I shake your hand?
Yes.
I want you to know you are fabulous. You're fabulous not only as a wonderful young filmmaker, but you're thoughtful and you're sensitive, and I'm so glad. Number one, I got to tell people about this film, and more, to be able to talk to you and feature you on L'chaim. I hope there, as you continue your career and your thoughtfulness in a very complicated area of Jewish life, every now and then you'll come and sit in this chair and we'll talk.
Of course. This is so fun.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
great talking.
Paula Eiselt, director of a superb documentary on the woman's role in the frum observant Hasidic Orthodox community entitled 93 Queen, the story of the founding of the all-women's EMT Corps, Ezras Nashim. I hope you'll have a chance to see Paula's film. If you want to learn more about Ezras Nashim, you can visit their website at ezras-nashim.org. As always, I invite you to be in touch with me with any thoughts or comments you may have about any of the ideas expressed on this edition of L'chaim. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook page, or tweet me. I look forward to hearing from many of you. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. L'chaim, my friends, to life.
L'chaim is a presentation of Jewish education in media.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please, indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.